Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of February 5th, 2019. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Appointment of alternates. I know, Tony, we're trying to make you a full member, but until that happens officially, would you mind voting this evening?
No problem.
We need to vote. Okay, great. We do have a quorum this evening. Roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Stephen Weber, Selectman's Rep.
Tony Jarecki, alternate.
Kimberly Queen and Vice Chair.
Okay. First order, public input on non-agenda items. Any members of the public this evening who wish to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? Hearing none and seeing none, there's nobody here. Well, for non-agenda items, that is. I'm going to close the public hearing on non-agenda items, and we'll proceed to the first order of business. Renee Thoreau, map 15, lot 6-2, 311 Charles Bancroft Highway, approved house design for plan number 36221. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
He is. So why don't you come up to the table, introduce yourself to the board.
Good evening, board. My name is Renee Thoreau. I currently live in 315 Charles Bancroft Highway. And I have to, I guess, I didn't realize a lot when I had the subdivision done in 2007. One of the requirements was that the planning board just review the house drawings and make sure it conforms to the look of the neighborhood, I guess, lack for a better word. And I'll read it, what it says on item 7. The architect and style of the house should be similar to that of the general area prior to building a permit. A consultation with the planning board is required. So I'm here to show you what I would like to do.
Okay.
And hopefully,
Jay, have you had an opportunity to see this plan at all, or?
I've seen what's on the agenda. Didn't see the whole plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any copies of?
I'm sorry. This I
Just
can
the
pass
pictures.
around. to
Okay,
the
that's
board.
fine. No, I
This
was
is
just
what
curious.
I choose to build.
Okay.
And I have some layout drawings of the outside, pretty much for your review. So one floor ranch style. So these are the elevations. This is the front. This is 311 Charles Bancroft Highway. I live on 315 currently, and I was trying to stay with what my house currently looks like. I'm staying within that general country style look. I didn't know if the board needed anything else other than to review what I'm trying to, the look I want to build. And I'm building exactly per that picture. Same color.
So I guess my question is, what are we looking to do? Are we looking to? Is this a site plan review, or is this just
Just
a
to review the note.
review the note and approve the note? Is that?
Essentially, it's a compliance hearing, so you're just going to make a determination as to whether or not this proposed design complies with the condition of approval.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I mean, I
It's
wasn't sure because there wasn't a
unusual.
lot of information.
It's
So,
unusual.
okay.
In fact, I forgot this note existed when I went for the building permit. I was going to be issued that, and then he said, "Whoops, you have to get this before I can finish the issue
I
this."
see.
So
I see.
unfortunately, I didn't look to review it before I went to get the permit.
So essentially, it's for note 7, basically making it similar to what.
This was done in 2007 when I subdivided, so I think the concern was that I may or possibly build something that wouldn't be of I don't know, within character of,
And I would imagine.
Apartment building.
Right. And I think imagine that's because it is right on 3A.
That looks great.
Nice. Okay, does the board have any questions of the applicant?
Ties with our master plan. Yeah. John, I just said it ties with our master plan. Sorry. I don't know if you heard.
Well,
I don't know
It
what to present other than.
yeah, no. I mean, if you're looking for that it complies, certainly don't see any issues with it.
Obviously, I was not going to build anything that was not going to look ostentatious or anything like that.
Right.
Like I said, I was trying to come to similar to look that my house is already
Yeah, I saw. it
on there in
like-
315.
I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Brief it. Let's see if you guys have any questions.
We have just finished our community design chapter and we talked about homes in Litchfield and this looks like it complies.
Good.
So, I think,
Of course, I want to look country. I've
mhm.
been in Litchfield for over 30 some odd years, so.
Very nice. Okay. If there's no questions from the board, I have no questions to ask. I think the architecture and the style of the house is similar to that. That's in the general area, meets the requirements. I would entertain a motion, I guess, to approve compliance with number 7 on the plan.
I'll make a motion to approve note 7 on the plan.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, abstained. Motion carries 4-0-0.
Sorry, I couldn't stay longer than that.
But you're welcome to.
So, what's the procedure?
I can let John know that
Okay.
it's been approved by the planning board.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck. That's a
Yes,
beautiful.
good luck. Yeah, very nice house.
Happy construction.
Make sure that you're all set.
Yeah, you can take them. You're good.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Here.
Have a good evening.
Yes. Have a good evening. Take care. Okay. The next thing on the agenda, I believe, is the transportation project. Lost my
So
place.
take one or just pass down.
Yeah, take one and pass it
Okay.
down. So I think this isn't going to be a very exciting transportation chapter.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go through a few things, but I mean, really, it's a testament in large part, I think, to the good planning that the town has done over the years, because there really aren't a lot of issues or problems. So just kind of, just as a broad overview, what we're currently working on now is updating a lot of the data that's going to go into the various tables, things like on the traffic counts, accident data, et cetera. So that's all in process now. And by the next time we meet on this, I'm thinking if we meet on this in another month, the first meeting maybe in March, depending on what the schedule looks like, we should have all that data collected and most likely a draft of the final chapter. So really just kind of a few things I wanted to go over now. So the first thing that you're looking at now is the list of the projects that are in the current Metropolitan Transportation Plan that was just adopted in December. So this plan is really what feeds and informs the 10-year plan as that gets adopted by the state every 2 years. So these are kind of the projects that are out there on the radar. There are none in Litchfield. So just the few I wanted to highlight that impact Litchfield. Starting with the first one, which is kind of surprising, that's what's called the Hudson Boulevard project. Essentially what that is, for those who haven't followed it, is this is a proposal by the town of Hudson to build a portion of the former circumferential highway. So it would be a 2-lane limited access road, very much modeled after Albuquerque. So it wouldn't be the 4-lane highway that had been, previously conceived. As you may or may not know, the state went so far as to purchase the right-of-way between Lowell Road 3A in Hudson and 111. So that right-of-way is sitting there. It exists. It's very wide. So that was the concept, and it would be a town-funded project. Interestingly, it got into the 10-year plan.
Is it on their warrant this year?
No. So it got into the 10-year plan last year. They applied for a federal build grant. And the idea was that that grant would cover the cost of engineering and some of the project cost. And the thinking was, I hate to speak for Hudson or for the selectmen, but as I understand it, the thinking was it would reduce the cost to the town, and you'd be able to basically present it as the federal government's taking a share, town's taking a share. They didn't get the build grant. So it was pulled from the one.
Okay.
And so the plan is to go back and look at it again next year. When it was proposed initially, and I think when we were looking at it, earlier on, the concept really was it would help alleviate a lot of the traffic on places like Lawson Road and Bush Hill Road, these roads that are in the southeastern portion of Hudson that are bearing a lot of that traffic now. And that's true. What was surprising to me, and the reason why I put it here, is that it achieves a really significant reduction in traffic at the Taylor Falls Bridge. That was a surprise. That's what impacts Litchfield, because obviously there's a lot of folks in Litchfield who go that way. Right now, that's one of the most congested points in the region, and it's going to continue to be. So I was surprised to see the reduction that this achieved, and I guess it's logical. A lot of the folks who are currently coming from the east, coming down 111, 102, going to the Taylor Falls Bridge, 3A from Litchfield. Mm-hmm. But it's those folks who are coming really from 111 who would swing down and go to the Sagamore. So at any rate, hope that I understand they will try again next year. We've modeled it. It would be good to see something like that happen, because that's one of the pinch points where there's not a lot that can be done. There are some improvements that are proposed, including a replacement of the Taylor Falls Bridge, but it's not planned to be widened. It's an in-kind replacement. So that's really, there's no benefit there to alleviate congestion. There's also improvements that I didn't talk about here in the East Hollis Street area in Nashua, and those don't alleviate congestion in any way either. So I didn't talk about those. So just kind of moving on down to the next page, really the next big significant one is replacing the mainline tolls. That is, obviously that's the Bedford toll. This has two choices, open road tolling or all electronic tolling. I think it's more likely going to be all electronic unless there's a pushback on that. That also, obviously any project like that's going to have a construction impact basically right at exit 13. Mm-hmm. But once that project is completed, it is anticipated that that's going to reduce congestion. Again, any folks traveling that way, there'll be an impact. And then kind of going on to the next page, the other real biggie is widening that 2-lane section of the Turnpike, basically between the Bedford tolls, heading on down to exit 8. So there's one area where it does actually flare out to 3, then it goes back to 2. So you've got those 2 pinch points there. And kind of once again, anybody from Litchfield who's traveling through there, and there certainly are Litchfield people traveling through there, it is going to make a significant difference. There's going to be a challenge, obviously, once again, during construction, there's going to be a real impact. Once it's done, it is going to make a significant difference. So really, that's it in terms of what we've got in terms of long-range plans right now. Unless there's any questions on any of those. I don't anticipate anything else. I will add that the northern section of the circumferential The northern bridge crossing is in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan as a, basically it's an unfunded project. So it's in there. There's no funding. There's no timing for it. So it's considered an illustrative project. Realistically, I don't anticipate it ever happening, but nevertheless, kind of looking back at the previous chapter, the transportation chapter. So the last transportation chapter was completed in 2002. And I guess one of the things a couple of things that jumped out at me is I kind of, note how this won't be a very exciting chapter this time. That really wasn't the case in 2002. It was anticipated that a lot of things would happen, including, so the northern section of circumferential, that northern bridge crossing was expected to happen as a project. It was seen as moving through the process. The southern half had already disappeared because of the environmental impacts, but it was anticipated the northern section would happen. That really triggered a lot in the master plan at that time, because obviously there would be a interchange at 102 and there would be an interchange at 3A, and those would be really, really significant right at about Page Road. Obviously the land use impacts would have been very significant, but from a traffic point of view, they anticipate about a 20% increase in traffic on 3A, and that triggered additional intersection improvements that were necessary all the way up. Obviously, that's all gone now. But interestingly, the airport access road was understood as a project, but it wasn't seen as being as far along. So it wasn't as well developed. Obviously, the anticipated impacts from that, those have been realized. So we have, clearly, we've seen a significant amount of traffic in that area. The other thing that was not complete at that time was Albuquerque. So Albuquerque was certainly planned. It was anticipated that it was going to happen. And basically the number one recommendation was seek the funding to complete Albuquerque. And they also talked about the bike and pedestrian trail, seek the funding to make that happen. I don't think what was anticipated, though, was how Albuquerque would wind up functioning. And I think we kind of alluded to last time, it has really become the minor arterial. It's replaced 3A. And that really wasn't anticipated, how it was going to be used and how it's going to be functioned. So I think that also kind of, it reduces some of the need for improvements on 3A. Well, that makes sense. And it may touch on some other issues that I was going to bring up in just a moment. And then there were some smaller intersection improvements that were talked about. They talked about the intersection of Page Road and Albuquerque and some other areas where there are sight distance challenges. We'll look at all of those again. Some of those might, still be an issue. Some of those might not be. All of those were really relatively minor. So, those are kind of the more global issues. A few other things I thought worth chatting about. Because the bottom line is, pass it down. I don't really anticipate that we're going to find the need for any significant improvements at all. There's just nothing that seems to really trigger that outside of some minor things here or there. So, but a few things that we could talk about. One, I just went back into the last bicycle pedestrian plan that was done, the regional one. It may matter, it may not, but I will say Litchfield got the lowest walk score. So just throwing it out for the town center area. So as you can see, the 4% was pretty low. I note, though, and I don't know really whether it matters, is that they were focusing on Litchfield Town Center. This was also at a time before this building was built, obviously before the fire station was built. It just kind of, and this might not even really be a transportation issue, but it kind of made me wonder what's really the town center and how we look at it. Because if you look at this as the town center, there actually are pretty good bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. So, I throw it out there. I don't know how much we need to think about it. I did kind of, if you're turning the next page, though, it did note that, Albuquerque is used as an example of what's good, what works. So I thought that was of interest. They also focus on Brookline. And the only reason I threw this in here is to what extent do we want to think about any bicycle and pedestrian improvements? Obviously, we've got good accommodations on Albuquerque, and that happens to accommodate most people in Litchfield. Is there anything else that we think we want to connect? Whether that's through something like we have here, a separate paved path, or is it wider shoulders to accommodate, pedestrians and bicyclists, maybe without sidewalks or a more major improvement? Is there any thought to maybe connecting with bicycle and pedestrian accommodations to 3A, to the more traditional town center? So I throw it out. And the reason I throw it out is because if we're thinking that these are things that we may want to pursue, it makes sense to look at them now, put them in the plan now. And that's really where that other slide came in, because every couple of years, we've got another round of transportation alternatives funding. And if you've got a project, ready to go, and there's been some analysis around it, that's the opportunity to get it funded. This year, out of the 13 communities in the region, we had 4 submit applications. So these things do tend to kind of come up pretty quickly. So if you don't have a project conceived at all, not designed, but conceived, it's kind of hard to get it forward. So I throw it out there. Maybe this is something that we want to really think
We
about.
do have a plan conceived, nothing engineered from Albuquerque to the library. We own property. We may own more property soon, but we could make that connection. It's all wooded now. That
Right.
would need to be engineered.
But that would be a really interesting and worthwhile project, and that's the kind of connection that I think scores well. So, and if there's any others out there or trail systems that we're thinking also that we might want to advance,
That would be a trail system, not
Right.
a paved.
but that would be, I think that could be effective. So anything like that makes sense to, and maybe I can get with you on what that route would be.
Okay.
But if we think that makes sense, I think let's include it. And then I did stick the next page in there is just what's currently shown as the major bicycle and pedestrian connections, for what that's worth. And then again, it's just informational purposes, what it's worth. But I was surprised to find that Litchfield actually has the lowest share of in-town commute trips. So at 10%, which is really not that tiny of a number, but that means 10% of the labor force in Litchfield works in Litchfield. We say commute, that's probably a large number. Those are probably home occupations. The percentage surprised me a little because it's smaller than some of the very rural communities, but maybe that shouldn't surprise me. But the bottom line is it kind of goes back to the earlier topics we were talking about, when 90% of the people in Litchfield commute outside of Litchfield, even though we're not looking at many improvements in the town proper. Obviously, 90% of the people are very impacted by what's happening on these major routes in and out of Litchfield. So that's that one. And then we also chatted a little bit about road conditions. I will note this is draft. So what I'm passing out now still needs to be reviewed and approved by the town administrator and the road agent. So these are preliminary results.
I have 2 here. Oh, no, the 2 pages each.
Yeah, there's 2 pages in here. So we've recently completed what's a road surface management study for the town. So our staff, drove and analyzed every segment of road in the town. And this is the initial result. And kind of, again, it goes back to you could say boring, you could say good planning. But if you turn to the next page, That's really where it jumps out at you. Most of the roads, overwhelmingly so, in Litchfield are in good shape. And, I expected them to be in good shape. I didn't expect the percentage to be as high as it is. So you can see we've basically got great is actually the most significant category that you don't usually see that. Most of the roads are most of that miles are in that category. And then the next is good. Poor is almost indistinguishable. So you can see that in the chart, and then you see it, only 0.16 miles came out as poor. You probably can't even see it on the map. It's so small. And then even in the kind of fair, poor to fair, again, only 1.63 miles. Overwhelmingly, you're either great or really good. So that says a lot. Obviously, ideally, I think you want to maintain that, putting in a road improvement, road paving program that maintains this really very high level of service. Quite, I think that's really quite impressive, and it's quite a testament to the ongoing management of the town's resources. So I was surprised. But the point of this is ideally it helps to establish the priorities going forward of how to keep the road system in this good state. So I was impressed and surprised. More often than not, we hear that the amount of investment that communities are making is insufficient for them to keep from falling back. That's not the case here. So that's great. As long as we can keep it up.
Absolutely.
So there is another part of this that is looking at the MS4 side of it, the drainage. That's coming a little bit later.
Okay.
That will be looking at every single drainage structure. Most interesting. So that's really all I've got. There's just not a whole lot out there. I think it's good that there isn't a whole lot of issues and challenges to talk about. The one other thing that we did talk about previously, which we'll also be looking at, is a signal warrant at page N1 of it. And beyond that, that's really it. So anything else we should be thinking about or looking
What did you
at?
say about page in 102?
Looking at the possibility of signal improvements there. So we'll look at that and see if it is.
I did some research, but I was surprised. I want on the record that I do live on Albuquerque. And it has become pretty fast. There's been 4 or 5 accidents in front of my house alone.
That is true.
One person flipped her car this way 35 feet into my yard, so I don't know how fast she was going. So I looked up traffic camera signal lights that could take license plates. Apparently it's illegal in New Hampshire to do that. So you can't take a picture of somebody speeding. I guess the tolls might be able to do it if it's a tax issue, but not for.
Right. That's
We have
right.
a traffic trailer coming.
Hmm?
We have a traffic trailer coming that they can go off and deploy in different parts of town.
What does that mean?
What?
Is that like it's the mileage is this
They'll
and
get the
you're
module
doing that?
flash and they'll get all the analytics to go with it.
So I was
Based on
surprised.
that, we'll go back and patrol the areas.
So what a
at certain
revenue
times
builder
where
that would be.
might the speed.
We are getting that for this coming year?
I believe so.
And we will look at accident data. But one of the things we can look into is we can, not to say we haven't proposed anything, but we could come back with traffic calming alternatives if that is of interest.
Someone had brought up that, I'm not picking on any industry in general, but maybe at the beginning of Hillcrest, the intersection with the pink house is Hillcrest and Albuquerque that goes down to 3A. Maybe big trucks can't go that way. They have to go down 3A and enter that way. So for example, do you want to draw it somewhere?
So
I'll draw an example.
you're saying make it a.
You have
access,
Hillcrest
or-
and Albuquerque. So you have 3A, I'll write it up here.
Right.
Hillcrest. And then you have you had the town hall over here. So I'll show everybody. See 3A's down here.
Yeah.
And you come up, let me see. Say you come up here.
You're coming up
Yeah,
Albuquerque?
we're coming up, yeah, let me, just give me a second. Here's the town hall. Let me just, give me 1 second. I guess Hillcrest is this way.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
Okay, Hillcrest,
Albuquerque.
3A, Albuquerque goes on both sides. I'm spelling it wrong.
It's
Albuquerque,
a tough one.
but you get the idea.
Thank
So
you.
if we're on 3A and we're coming up Albuquerque, you got the golf course and everything over here and some businesses, maybe just keep the trucks down this way. They have to always come in up 3A to get to the businesses over here. Instead of coming down the tunnel. Let me draw it out somewhere. We got a pencil, pen. Oh, we got a,
maybe
wow,
do
the
on
map
this,
isn't as great.
Yeah, tell us, so Hillcrest and
Give me
Albuquerque.
and I'm not trying, this might be, I'm just saying where the town hall is right now.
Yeah,
If we leave the town hall and take a right to go down to 3A on Albuquerque. So we,
okay,
so
yeah,
we're-
to get to
does
the,
everyone make sense?
heading
We're at
heading
the town hall.
northerly,
Yeah.
right.
All right, if you take a right.
Yep.
So you got the pink house in front of us, you take a right to get down to 3A, maybe
Yeah.
not have the big trucks coming down that road. They have to go down Hillcrest and go down 3A to come up. I'm trying to reduce the big trucks going fast through that area. So 3A to the town hall, that part of Albuquerque.
Yep.
Maybe just don't allow big trucks down that way.
Me-
Have them go down Hillcrest and go around
I
up
think the
3A.
reason they use Hillcrest right now is because that line of sight issue they have.
I don't
Passing the
know.
recycling center.
I don't know.
going
What I'm
down.
just saying, I don't know if we can control big trucks coming through the area with certain signs. I mean, you have to have commercial trucks in there for septic and furniture delivery and all that. But I'm just saying a lot of trucks go there through there fast that are big. So if they don't come through the neighborhood, they're forced to go down 3A and then come up into that 1 or 2 businesses over there.
Instead of going on Albuquerque?
Yeah.
But Albuquerque is an arterial road.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe there's signs that we could have certain, I have to look at that. That's something
Then you're
I would
just
like.
pushing the problem to 3A. It's more of an
Right.
enforcement problem, I think.
We are, well, I'm just saying.
We can certainly look at whether it's possible, and then we can make some
I just
decisions
don't know if you can have
around.
signs that just say certain hours, certain truck, I don't know. And I don't want to pick on certain businesses either, because I'm not saying that's the problem. I'm just saying when I see lots of trucks going, I've actually called companies and said, thank you for doing the speed limit. And they thought I was going to complain. So I'm just saying big trucks that are going 50, 60 miles an hour down Albuquerque, maybe that have 18 wheels or whatever.
That's where their new sign would come in handy.
Yeah, maybe they can reroute the traffic to go down towards the pink house, take a right and get up 3A.
And
Just
goes
enter
back-
that
That
business.
goes back into the warrant, buying that parcel of land, because if the town buys a parcel of land, we can take the trees down.
Right,
then it's line
and
of
have a
sight.
better site.
Hillcross is a state road also. And if we even get some funding, you could actually straighten the road.
That might be something. I'm not saying you can't go down the other side of Albuquerque either, but they just don't seem to speed. There's not a lot of houses directly there. The back of their houses are there, but not,
Not the front, yeah.
I'm not saying that's something, I'm just saying, I don't even know if we can do that.
Let's look
Just
into it.
to-
We'll look into it.
Because you can't discriminate because people do need the big trucks in there. Furniture delivery, that kind of thing, septic cleaning.
We'll look into it. We'll see if it's possible, and then we'll see whether it's advisable.
I don't know if
Whether
it's
advisable
something
is a separate question.
I don't know if we should. Again, I don't want to discriminate against any business, but if it keeps huge trucks from going fast.
Yeah, I mean,
Not that the cars on screen either. But
yeah, I mean, speed is an issue in Albuquerque.
I just think they forget it was a neighborhood. It's growing up, obviously, but the kids are still trying to cross the street. And the pets are getting run over.
All right, yeah, I mean, we'll look into it.
But I was surprised we couldn't have the 35-mile-an-hour thing take a picture and get some revenue for the town.
Yeah, I think even with the toll booth, they can only use those pictures for the purpose of enforcing the toll.
I had no idea it was against the law.
Interesting.
But that's a good point about the Hillcrest property and what was brought up at town meeting. And I think, that's definitely something we want to probably include in, as we do this chapter and see,
It's a good idea.
yeah.
And Joan is right. We are pushing the problem down to 3A at that point, right?
You know, you push more traffic onto it.
We are. So that might be something you have to weigh to say, hey, no,
Well,
we can't move that problem over
It's just that,
here.
it's something that you weigh.
But if it's a speed problem, then I would think that police should be notified and have a little more presence out there.
Well, I think that's if they put up those traffic analytics.
Yeah, the
things,
visual could probably
that'll
stop it.
definitely probably give them
Right.
more of an
I mean, there's
idea.
things like that. Sometimes there's the visual cues. Sometimes
Mhm.
even it's just paint.
Yeah.
You know, that you can do things with. If there's a perceived narrowness in a road, it usually leads to slowing down.
Because that's a pretty wide road. I mean, I think almost everyone goes a little too fast.
Yeah,
on
because,
it.
you know, all of a sudden the houses drop off and you have the straightaway.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
and I don't
it's
want to
tempting.
hurt the business at the end of the street either, because that's
Right.
not the problem, but there's
Right.
other trucks that are the problem.
So yeah, we'll look at that. We'll look at the traffic calming measures. We'll look at, improvements to Hillcrest to improve line of sight.
And I definitely think the Page Road left is always a fun time when I drop you off in the morning. That's crazy.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Any others? They have to, they don't, it's, we can think of other ones later too.
Right.
But
On the transportation chapter, I think page 3, when you start talking about a principal arterial versus a minor arterial, can we just go over those definitions, if you don't mind?
Yeah, they're pretty standard definitions.
Hmm.
But sure.
I just want to see what applies here, like which one's 3A or,
So if you go to the
because like page
page
4 kind of had
5,
it.
there's a map
Okay.
that shows what they are. So mainly, I mean, again, obviously, we're looking at an old map. The highest level that we got is the section of 3A from Hillcrest to the town line, which
Mhm.
shows as a minor arterial.
Mhm.
And then you kind of see the same thing from about Page Road on 3A heading
Right.
down to the Hudson line.
Right here. So
Um,
like here and here. Those are called major,
No, those are minor
those are
arterials.
minor arterials?
Because yeah, I know. But
So I'm looking at this here.
when you're looking at these classifications, these are statewide. So you're kind of looking at it in that context. What's a minor arterial in a statewide sense is clearly major for Litchfield.
I'll show them.
And as you can see here, and this is something else that we will be looking at.
Transportation chapter, and I just want to make sure that he's saying these two are minor areas. You can show Tony. Okay.
But this is going to change because, as you can see here, Albuquerque wasn't completed.
Right.
And the portion that was completed was considered a minor collector. I think that when you look at the traffic volumes that you see out there, I think it really is a minor arterial, not a collector.
Was the golf course, the Hidden Creek Golf Course, was that
Considered major though.
considered at the time that this was, the last transportation chapter was adopted, was that?
I don't think so.
I don't think it's so either.
I don't think it was.
Came after.
The other thing that's happened is that once Albuquerque was completed, traffic south of the intersection of Albuquerque and 3A has really dropped off. I think that section will no longer be minor.
I just want
Arterial
to, you
either.
know what I mean, clarify. Yeah.
Yeah, so those, and I think we can put some better descriptions in there, to help describe kind of what those are, maybe even a little of the rationale. You do have them on page 3, but we could probably do a little more to beef that up. But pretty much that's what we're going to see. We're going to see minor arterials, collector, local roads will be kind of the 3 categories.
Well, it makes sense that you said it's from a state point of view. I'm saying from a town point of view, that
From a town
doesn't,
point of
that doesn't
view,
look like a
this-
minor
right,
arterial to me.
Yeah,
Now
that's what
that you're
we should be
saying it's a
clear
state
about.
one,
Right,
that makes sense.
exactly.
Okay. I'm like, that's a major one in Litchfield. All right. That makes sense. Do we have other roads that are growing like that? That are
You
heavy
really don't.
traffic? I mean, let's look at your statistics there. I mean,
You don't. You're growing. I don't know if it's fair to say growing. You've seen significant growth. The 2 things that have led to really significant growth are the completion of Albuquerque and the airport access road. That's increased traffic and changed traffic.
Mhm.
Obviously, you've had background growth because you've had new development. So that also factors into it. So there's been growth, certainly since 2002, you've seen fairly significant growth. The real story, though, is less the overall growth as how it's changed. The areas where you've seen big increases and big drop-offs. Overall, going forward, we're not projecting a whole lot of increase just because a level of development isn't expected to be that high. For the planning horizon, but it will be there. You're going to see continue. You're going to see more residential growth. You're going to see some business growth. So there'll be the background. None of it's going to get to the level though where it's going to trigger the need for improvements. Because even though you do have a decent amount of traffic and we're seeing an increase, there's still a lot of capacity.
Right, because I mean, you come from different sectors. If you're either coming from Manchester, you're coming in from Londonderry. You could come in from Londonderry that way. You could come in from Hudson.
Right.
Those are really the routes. If people are going to be coming into Litchfield, or
That's right.
I mean,
And everybody isn't going in the same direction
Right.
or to the same place. And obviously, a lot of it, that turnpike traffic is mostly going up to the access road.
But the 10% that you said that stay local during the day, I mean, unless the business, I don't see that changing a lot. We have to
I
get
don't
out
think
of
that's
town,
gonna
right?
change.
Unless we have business
That's
at the
right.
north end, come in more, but I
I
don't see that.
You may see some, but I don't see that changing significantly.
I mean, obviously, we have the project that was just approved for that auto warehouse. I mean, that.
But we forced them to take a certain turn when they left the driveway, right?
Not necessarily.
No, I thought we had that in there.
They weren't
But
forced.
they were supposed to, right? Like so many
They said
trucks
that
per
that
day, and
they-
so they were gonna
Right.
go the other direction.
So many trucks per day, but they would be going towards the highway, they said, but
Right.
delivery trucks won't. Delivery
Yeah,
trucks
they were
would be
speaking of
going
the 18-wheelers, but the little delivery trucks can go in any
Right,
direction.
right.
I mean, you will see business growth and you will see residential growth. Whether the percentage of people, though, you've got a business in town doesn't necessarily mean that the people who work there live here, or that most of them will. Or so I don't think the percentages will change significantly, and we're not going to see a major employer come in that's going to really alter traffic.
Plus, I mean, you have a lot of it too is seasonal things. I mean, obviously you have Mel's, you have the golf courses. I mean, those are seasonal.
Right.
So
Farm stands.
There is an uptick in telecommuting these days.
There is.
Yeah.
And that could make a difference. And you could see some changes in there, but a big
But it won't
swing.
be big swings.
It's not going to change traffic patterns to a significant level.
So the main ones that go this way to 3A would be Page, Talent,
Yep.
cutovers, right?
Hillcrest,
Hillcrest, Pinecrest. I'm not sure what this one is here. I can't see the name on that one. This one here. That's probably Pinecrest, right? Which one's that? You have Page down here.
Yeah.
Page Road, Talent Road.
Yeah.
What's that one?
Pinecrest.
I know you have Hillcrest. Is that Pinecrest and then Hillcrest?
Pinecrest and
Okay.
Hillcrest.
yeah,
So those would be the main crossroads,
Those are the
right?
main
Those are the
ones,
ones going this direction, and then you have 3A the other way, right?
and the high school too has changed traffic patterns, of course.
Yeah, they'll probably build more homes up there.
And we'll look at that also. When we look at the background, we look at, for what it's worth, there are these transportation analysis zones, TAZs. And so what we basically do is we look at the overall growth both for residential as well as employment. And those are all put into these areas, and then you kind of model where the traffic goes. So that'll be a part of what you see.
If the biggest problem that I see in town is Page Road that left onto 102,
Yeah,
In
that's a tough
Albuquerque.
one.
it's not a horrible problem.
It's not.
It's not. This is not
It's a
like
very solvable
It's
problem.
this is
Well, it's a big problem at rush hour, and the state doesn't want to put a traffic light there.
where's that?
Page and
102.
Page
Page,
and 102.
Right. But we'll
But even
look at it.
Albuquerque's manageable. If they just would just.
We'll do
10
the more
miles an hour.
analysis on that though.
I mean, but even that is not the worst that I'm sure you've seen in the 13 towns around here. It's just,
Well, yeah, because
you know, just Milford alone, I've heard the story. So,
But right, I mean, you've got areas
huge
where
problem.
the magnitude of the issues of 101, 101A are huge, and the costs are enormous, and right away and everything.
I don't want to
So-
say the sky's falling. It's not. I just,
It's
little
not,
safety.
But
pump
from the
would be
perspective
good.
of Litchfield, those things
For Litchfield, it
matter.
might be just a
They
little
matter to the
safety.
90% of the people who need to get in and out of town. And it's good not to have problems.
I mean, I don't think rotaries solve anything, you know.
Yes, they do.
Where would they solve a problem?
Well, that's the thing.
Maybe not in Litchfield, but rotaries do solve problems. As much as
I'm just
people don't
curious where we would put
Yeah,
a
I don't
rotary.
think we would have a rotary.
I mean,
in Litchfield.
I just can't picture it. Maybe,
want. Well, Pinecrest and Albuquerque would be a good place for one because nobody stops at stop signs there.
Pinecrest and Hillcrest.
Albuquerque.
I thought I was waiting for a light
Pinecrest
there
and
one day.
Albuquerque.
There is no light. It was a four-way stop sign.
I know lights in Litchfield.
I was sitting there.
I can guarantee, though, if you want to generate public interest in the transportation chapter of the master plan, propose a rotary.
Yeah.
Proposing that?
Propose a rotary.
I get people
Oh.
interested.
Jeez.
If people wanted to drive in them, like yield going in, blink or going out, they work fine.
Do we have, I don't think we have stoplights on Litchfield. Is there not?
No, there's
We don't
no-
have any.
there's no
traffic
It wasn't
signals.
allowed, right? And even what I saw was even some things we come up with might not be a planning board issue, it might be a zoning issue or a land use kind of thing, like had neighborhood business land use chapters, but that I don't think applies.
Yeah, no, access management
Talk about that
is
in
something that's talked about in the transportation section, so trying to
Yeah.
limit curb cuts and things like that. So that is, it becomes a land use issue, but transportation chapter definitely talks about that.
I did some research on like neighborhoods that turned into real urban areas and, you know, they were trying to balance that. It ended up being a land use issue, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a land use issue.
Scalability, but that doesn't apply here.
No, but the curb cut issue, does matter.
It's not a horrible thing. So we're still looking at roads, but we still have buses and,
I like it.
you know, electric cars.
like
and
it.
all that.
I still like it.
I do too.
well, that's the thing too. I mean, do we want to see I don't know, maybe have one or, bus route or something, or have a bus station somewhere for people to get picked up? I don't know. Is there any of that in Litchfield? No, we don't have that.
There isn't, and that is something that we can look at also. I mean, what are the
It's
opportunities?
just an idea. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there is no, obviously, there's no fixed route service.
Yeah.
We're doing a national transit system study expansion. The likelihood of that saying, there's a demand to go to Litchfield is probably not great. The other alternative that's out there is a service like STVC, the Silicon Valley Transit, or Coast, or CART, one of those on-demand services for elderly disabled. That's a possibility. That's something that, we could look at.
okay. Anybody have any other questions for Jay?
The gentleman of the NRPC who said we could have grants for the Volkswagen diesel issue.
Oh,
And he said we might be able to get a grant for if we wanted to plug electric cars in. Say you wanted a
That's
parking
right.
space at
Yeah.
the town hall.
Mhm.
I guess I'm not an electrical engineer, but we have one here. I guess to put the conduit and everything underground is a lot of setup.
It is.
So but he said we might be able to approach him for a grant for that.
Yeah, there's from the Volkswagen settlement. So that's being made available to municipalities.
Should we?
And,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any interest at all, I don't know if there's an opportunity, to do anything
Should
here.
we research
but,
it first and then ask the
there's
board
at
if
all any
inquire if they were
interest.
interested, or should we inquire first and see if they want us to follow up?
Town hall fire
It's one
station,
circuit
logical.
that fall out, that's it.
Do you want one at the town hall and maybe the high schools? I don't know. I
feel like
have no idea. I
everybody's
don't know if
gonna
there's
be-
an interest.
I think everybody's gonna be behind the curve on this. GM's supposed to be all electric by 2025. That's not that
That's
far
not that
away.
far away.
So
But
they're
the
not gonna-
polar
in other words-
vortex causes a problem, I heard in the news today.
What was that?
Polar vortex causes a problem with
I
electric
mean, is that
cars
something
because
we
they
should
don't,
look at?
the range, they don't
Yeah.
have the range.
Yeah, the
then.
battery technology, the cold.
I mean, we could
versus-
definitely
Can I
take
reach
a
out
look
to
at
them?
it
I
and
don't know his name. I'll have to reach out.
Tim White.
Tim White. He told me to reach out to him, but I wanted to make sure we,
It's
did
Tim
we
White.
inquire
and-
with you first? Or do I want to get the information?
I'll
and-
get the information and then
Yeah.
come back. and
So
see
Tim
what
White.
Yeah, and I mean, it's out there, and these are focused on the state fleet and municipalities. But obviously, putting them in a place like Town Hall, there's the opportunity for them to be available for municipal vehicles as well as other town residents. Theoretically, schools can be a good site as well. Again, public, but any place where we don't really have park and rides or anything in terms of public infrastructure.
Right.
Libraries, but now probably not. But a site like this where there's the opportunity for town vehicles to take advantage of it, that's what really makes sense.
Do we have any?
But there aren't any town vehicles.
Well, not now.
Doesn't mean that you
The
can't move
future
from one.
fire trucks?
Yeah.
I have no idea. But
Well, I
they're
think,
saying like a customer couldn't pull up to the town hall and plug in? You wouldn't want to
no, I think you
go
could.
green.
Could definitely.
I think you
sell the
could.
green, movement?
It's just the focus of these funds, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, is focus on municipal and state vehicles. So, because there's going to be an increase, there is a push to convert state vehicles to electric, and inevitably
Would
that's
that be police cars and everything too? Or
sure.
Could be anything.
40 miles an hour, police car.
can we
Right.
put in a grant for something that hasn't happened yet?
Well, no, because
I don't think it'll pass.
I'd have to look into the details of this, whether it's specific to this, but I do believe that if not through this source, there are other sources out there of grant funds for converting fleets. So I think that's certainly out there, just as there are for CNG and every other alternative that's out there. So it could be something to look at. And we're seeing that more and more.
A lot of the buses are changing over.
A lot of the buses are changing over. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think the point with the infrastructure is even if that's all you're doing now, you're putting in the infrastructure, that's significant. So yeah, we'll look into it.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, so that's great. Thank you, Jay, for work on doing
And I
that.
got a little homework.
Yes, you do. Is anything we want to talk about? What are we going to do? What's the plan of attack? Are you going to take this information and put something together, or?
Yes. So as I mentioned, we've got some of this already in process in terms of putting together the data in the table. So that'll all be happening. And then I'm going to go back and take a look at some of these specific issues. I'll come back, the next time we meet on this with the updated data, but also looking at, what are some traffic calming alternatives. I'll look at answering, getting an answer to the question of can we restrict the truck routes? And then if so, what makes sense? And we'll look at the potential for some of the improvements that we talked about, like on Hillcrest. And I already put the request in to look, but we're doing the warrant analysis for the Page Road 102. So I'll come back with what we have on that and also some answers on the electrical vehicle charging.
Sounds good. Great.
And you got the invitation.
Well, it's timely.
It's timely.
Yes, I guess this is coming up. What is this? February 21st.
February 21st.
I also got the invitation as well.
Right.
I assume.
But Tony brought
So
up.
it'll be the commissioner, but it is timely because the other portion of it's going to focus on connected and autonomous vehicles. It's actually a pretty good presentation.
But Tony brought up an excellent point. You're right. And it's not just GM. I heard another one is also going totally
Yes.
electric. I don't know if it was a high-end car, but was it like the Jaguar? I mean, the whole fleet
Yeah, I
or
think
something was
Audi or
going.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's not that far away.
GM, I mean, that's,
GM's been trying for years.
yeah, but
Right.
2025, that's 6
Five
years away.
years away,
That's
yeah.
no more fossil fuels, the same. So,
That's the
The latest.
That's
state.
the- yeah.
They've done it before.
I want to have, because,
But Tesla's.
was it Tim, you said?
No, they get
Tim White, you
price
said?
point. otherwise.
He said just to get the infrastructure, it is
They've
very
only seen
expensive.
another one.
It's, you pay it up.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah, it is. That's the most expensive part, especially if you got to tear stuff up. But the connected autonomous vehicle stuff is coming, and that's coming soon.
What do you do if you commute to Boston though?
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Jay, I guess for next time then, we'll see what you
Yes.
together and
Yep.
I guess we got some good ideas on the board and we can work with those and go from there. That works with everybody. Cool. Okay, moving forward, committee reports. Are there any reports from any committees? Kim, do you have anything for NRC?
Well, just this, but I do have a question about it. I don't know if it comes up now or during the other items, but did this cost our town money for us to go? Because I saw during the
No,
deliberative
no.
session, the planning board cut some money. It looks like a lot of departments cut $1,000 or $2,000, but I didn't know if this was,
No,
Okay.
there's no cost.
okay. So I just
Yeah, 'cause
wanted
I
to
went
see if
to
I was going. Or you were
I think it was
going.
last year. I can't remember for sure, but it might have been last year. I went to the forum for NRPC and it didn't cost anything.
Yeah, okay. I just wasn't sure about budget cuts, so we can talk about that later if you can explain that.
But that's, and the reason why there's no cost is because it's aimed at public officials, so.
Oh, so Heritage Commission, we were meeting the second Tuesday of the month. We went through our bylaws. The draft, we're making the modifications now. NRPC, no quarterly meeting in March.
Yeah, next meeting's March.
March, so there's nothing to
Do you know
report on
the date,
NRPC.
March?
It's in my phone, like 18th, 20th, 18, 19th, 20th, they're all in that area.
20th is sticking in my head.
Yeah,
but
it's like the 20th. So that's it there.
Conservation Commission meets this Thursday night at 7 PM. I'll be at that meeting. Anybody have anything else that they want for committees? Okay. Approval of the 11/20/2018 amended minutes.
Yeah, a little explanation there. They were approved on December 18th, but then there was a missing motion, which I added. Motion was made by Kim, seconded by Stephen, to accept the above application for Mills Funway Park. There was no discussion on the motion. Motion passed 500. So that was added in. So if you could just approve the amendment, that'd be great. It's on page 2.
Motion was made by Kim Quinn, second by Stephen. Motion. Discussion on the motion. So what are you looking for, Joan? You want us?
Well, I added that motion into the.
Oh, you added in, okay, all right,
11:20.
so,
Yeah.
all right. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to
Just need to be
approve
reapproved.
these minutes as amended with the inclusion of that motion that was added.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion carries 400. And we also have the minutes of January 15th to approve. Any questions on those? No one sees anything. I'd entertain a motion to accept or approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes on January 15th,
Okay.
2019.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 400. Okay. Is there any other business this evening?
Yes.
I just, if you are in a position to answer about the deliberative session, I saw most of the groups cut $1,000 or $1,500 out of their budget. I saw the planning board did. Can you elaborate or no, or I didn't know if it
can.
impacted?
The budget is public knowledge. They cut $1,500 from line item 392, which is the NRPC planner. So we had budgeted, I think Michael had proposed 2,250, and they authorized 21,000. So that's where they took $1,500 out.
And can you say what the rationale was from all the different budgets, the cuts, due to the tax
We could
cap?
go line item by line item.
No,
every
due
single
to the
one.
tax cap. It's gonna have to
A lot of it
stay.
has to do with the tax cap, yes. When they
Okay,
come into, they'll start taking a few dollars everywhere to get within the tax cap.
okay.
That's why you'll see that the proposed budget and default, I think this year are only difference by $48,000, so they're really close.
And I saw everybody did it across the board.
Across the board,
I just
yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah, the budget
sure
committee
if-
goes straight through and they cut a little bit out of everyone trying to get within the tax cap.
It's not going to affect our paychecks, is it?
Oh.
No, your pay will be the same.
All right, good.
No, but sometimes we go to some lectures that cost money, and I just wasn't sure if, oh, there's a cap, don't go to any more of the training or whatever. Yeah.
Well, there is $500 in the budget for seminars.
Yeah, okay.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of free ones.
We like free.
Okay. Anything else? Trying to think of anything else, and I can't think of anything else. Jay, do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Joan, do you have anything
No,
else
you
to add?
don't.
Well, if nobody else has anything else to add, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay.
in unison.
Yes, okay. And a third. All right, I have a motion second. Do I have discussion? All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained. Motion passes 4-0-0. And we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you had an opportunity to watch the deliberative session or go to the deliberative session and get out and vote in March. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.